Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 2 of The Danger Gang by Tom Fletcher, continuing from page 56. I suddenly realised that in my frantic hurry to write out the card, I had totally forgotten that you're not supposed to write your name in Valentine's Day cards, and I'd signed it with my full name. Dear Miss Tinky, will you be my Valentine? From Frankie A. Brown. Oh, thank you very much, Frankie A. Brown, Miss Tinky trilled at the top of her lungs, spinning the card around so that everyone could see. The whole class burst out laughing, making kissing sounds. Ronnie Nutbog even made a rhyme about us that went, Frankie and Miss Tinky sitting in a tree, Kissiqt. It's a good job that twerp can't spell, or it would have been super embarrassing. Worst day in Freaky so far. Other than that, school's okay. Ronnie Nutbog still treats me like a bad smell or something. I used some of Dad's bold spice spray in case I did smell bad, just a little squirt under my arms like he does in the morning. And I'll tell you right now, I'm never using that stuff again. The rash stung so badly, I couldn't lift my arms for a week, which made PE really tricky. You live and learn. That felt right. Am I using that right? The other kids on my street, Molly, Eric, Jamelia, Katie, Charlie and Susie, seem pretty nice, although I've not really made any proper friends yet. But that's okay, I'm at school to learn, not to make friends. I guess I'm still the teacher's kid. Although they'll realise soon enough that my mum isn't just a science teacher, but an awesome inventor too. I mean, as soon as they see our homemade solar-powered family car that she invented, I bet they'll all be banging on the door and wanting to hang out with me. I keep telling Mum to make it fly. A hover car would be so awesome, and I know she could totally do it. Dad says we wouldn't need to pay for something called road tax then, because technically we wouldn't be using the road, but Mum says there are better things to invent than hover cars. As if! Frankie's top 3 things Mum should invent. Hover car, hoverboard, hover bike. I have a huge list of super awesome stuff for her to invent for me, including those anti-gravity boots I've been banging on about for over a year. But no anti-grav boots, yet. Not even hover slippers, just a pencil case. Okay, the pencil case is pretty cool. Mum does invent super awesome stuff, but she keeps it hidden away in her HSL, Home Science Lab, which is just a fancy pants name for the garage. It's cool having a real science lab in our house, but the rules are pretty lame. Mum's Home Science Lab rules. Danger! The HSL is off limits to everyone except Mum. This is not a garage, it is a scientific research centre. No children, no toddlers, and no husbands in the HSL. Scientists only. This only makes the HSL, even more tempting for me, Dad and Max. We try to get sneak peeks of what she's working on whenever she leaves the door open. I'm not supposed to tell you this, but, well, I guess there's no harm in it. You know that I said my mum had a really boring job for a really boring company, where she had to invent really boring inventions, like the nose hair dryer for people with really long nose hair, and the ironing board treadmill for people who like to walk while they iron, or even worse, the dinner plate that's always dirty for people who love doing the washing up. Well, that was a lie. I made all that up, sorry. The truth is, before we moved to Freaky, Mum used to work for this top-secret science company back in Greyville called Shadow Tech. Cool name, right? She invented loads of really awesome stuff for them that she said we're all going to have in the future, like the luggage shrinkos app that can shrink your suitcase at the airport so that everyone can take as much as they want on holiday. Mum had that idea when she went to Spain last year, and one of our suitcases was too heavy, so Dad had to take some stuff out. Unfortunately, when he opened the zip, the case exploded and fired Mum's knickers all over Terminal 1. Or the kid shutter-upper, which was another zapping laser that keeps children quiet for 5 minutes. Mum got that idea on the same holiday. And we there, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Zap! This invention was shortly followed by the husband shh. The wonder machine that will turn your husband into a shushband, which basically does the same thing, but it only works on husbands, and the silencing effects last for a whole hour. Mum had to dismantle that one, though, as the temptation to use it was too great for her to handle responsibly. That's what Dad said, anyway, when Mum wasn't listening. And I can tell you all this now because Mum got fired from that job with Shadow Tech. They didn't really give her a very good reason. Mum didn't like it there anyway. She said some of the people she worked with were trouble and not to be trusted. She was still angry about losing her job, though, especially because they made her leave behind all the inventions she developed there as she was escorted from the building. Eventually, she turned her anger into science and came up with an idea that I think might be the coolest invention ever. If I tell you, you will promise not to tell anyone. I don't want to wait for your next letter to get the answer, so I'll just assume you won't tell a living soul. And if you do, something really bad will happen to you, like your toenails will fall off. Okay? Good. My mum is working on an invention in the HSL, the garage, that can control the weather. Awesome, right? It's called the Weather Ray. Okay, so it doesn't have the snazziest of names. I gave her a list of way cooler names like the Weather Zapper 3000, the Weather Buster 3000, the Weather Beam 3000, the Weather Laser 3000. Putting 3000 after anything always makes it way better. She didn't like any of my names. She wouldn't even agree to add 3000 to her original name. I begged and begged her to let me see it, but she said not until it's finished, just like she always does. She did let me see her blueprints for it though, which I have redrawn from memory below. You'll notice that it's not like the ray gun Zack Danger uses to zap Dr. Vendetta in the last book. It's bigger and looks like a telescope, except instead of looking at the stars and the planets and all the stuff that we love doing, you have to point it at the clouds, and it can zap them into whatever sort of weather you want. Cool, huh? All this chemical reaction stuff happens inside it, and then it sends your weather in order into the clouds for immediate delivery. You want 5 minutes of sunshine? Beep, it's yours. Sick of those grey British skies? Beep, gone. Tired of walking to school in the freezing cold? Beep, sorted. Although instead of making us have sunny skies all year, Mum wants us to use it to slow global warming, which is probably a much better idea. Not as much fun though. I knew having an inventor as a parent would pay off one day. Just think, when she's finished developing the weather array, I'll be able to make a rain cloud appear right over Ronnie Nutbog's stupid head and pour down on him all day long. And I won't get into trouble because my mum's a teacher. That'll teach him to mess with a teacher's kid. This weather array is going to change the world. There's just one problem though. Inventing weather-changing technology is seriously complicated, even for a super nerd like Mum. So she's working every spare minute to try and develop some sort of limiter that will stop the machine from overheating and creating a crazy, out-of-control storm that would wipe out an entire town, possibly even the world, maybe the whole universe. I mean, that would really suck if that did happen, but Mum's promised she's not even going to switch it on until she's installed that limiter, so we're totally safe. Nothing could possibly go wrong, she says. Anyway, right back soon, okay? I really miss you. As a friend, because you smell nice. You smell nice, in a friend way. You smell like my friend, and I miss that smell. Frankie. P.S. Sorry about all that smell stuff at the end. You don't smell. Well, you do smell a bit, obviously, because everyone smells a bit, but you don't smell bad. You just smell of skin and hair and stuff, which is nice. Why am I writing about smells? I'm so weird. Lols. Bye. P.P.S. Happy Valentine's Day. March. Dear Danny, okay, don't panic, but something really, really, really freaky has happened. I'm not even sure where to begin. Don't worry, everyone's still alive. I think. But this is off the scale weird. Normal to weird. So you might want to sit down and make sure that that nosy sister of yours isn't reading this over your shoulder or I'm done for. It all started last night on Parents' Evening. Remember how annoying Parents' Evening used to be before I came up with the genius plan that we should always blame each other when we got caught doing something cheeky. Frankie Brown, it was Danica. Our super smart blaming system meant that your parents thought I was the mischief maker. Danica has so much potential, but I think she spends a little too much time with Frankie Brown. And my parents thought you were. Frankie could do very well if he paid attention to class, but I think Danica Chowdhury is a bad influence. Of course, we didn't expect the school to make us sit in different sides of the classroom next term, but we soon worked out our own way of communicating. Cough code. 1 cough, I wish we had donuts. 2 coughs, I wish we had pizza. 3 coughs, possibly zombie sighting in the playground. 4 coughs, does the zombie have pizza or donuts? But now that my mum is a teacher in my school, I don't have to worry so much about Parents' Evening. In fact, it's a breeze because Mum is so busy worrying about what she's doing to tell all the other parents that she couldn't care less about what the teachers say about me. Anyway, Mum was going to be out for the whole evening, so Dad was in charge of me and Max for the night. Big mistake. You and I both know that my dad is barely able to look after himself, let alone 2 children, especially me, and double especially Max, as if, like the time he took us to the zoo. But it gets worse, because last night was also the night of the football final, and it was Dad's team, Wiggles Bottom United, versus their biggest rivals, Trumpton City. Dad had banged on for weeks about how inconsiderate it was that the school had scheduled Parents' Evening on such an important night in the sporting year. I'm going to write a strongly worded letter to the head teacher, he grumbled. If you don't stop moaning, I'll unpack the husband. Shh, Mum warned. Dad was quiet after that. That's a lesson in irony, Mum whispered to him, smiling, but Dad's shirt still looked really creased, so I'm not sure I was paying enough attention. You live and learn. That definitely felt right. Anyway, back to last night. Picture this. Mum was out. The football was on. Dad was dressed in full Wiggles Bottom kit from head to toe, you know, the one that's totally brown. Brown shirt, brown shorts, brown socks and brown shoes. Dad says they chose brown so they don't need to clean the mud off their kit in the winter. Saves a fortune on their cleaning bill, apparently. And we had ordered freaky pizza, extra cheese for dinner, so Dad didn't even have to worry about working Mum's latest invention, the dinner-o-matic. We ate the pizza at the table in the kitchen while he kept running back to the living room whenever the football commentators' voices on the telly got super excited. I don't see the point in those commentators being there. They just say the exact same thing you're watching. He's fallen over. I'm glad they don't have them on zombie movies. And the zombie jumped through the window and is totally fine. And even more relieved, your nosy sister's soppy rom-coms don't have them, and they're kissing. Still kissing. Still kissing. I hope he brushed his teeth. I guessed things weren't going great with the football because Dad kept shouting things at the TV, like foul and offside, and even I could have scored that, as well as some words that I definitely can't write down. I didn't have the heart to tell him that it didn't matter how loud he shouted. The players couldn't hear him. He's 34 and should really know how the TV works by now. Here's where it all started to go wrong. I reached for another slice of pizza and noticed that Max had turned red. Not just a little bit red, I mean proper red, like his face was going to go pop. Since Max has only got a few teeth and can't chew his food that well, I guess the extra cheesy pizza was too chewy for him, and he must have a massive bit of pizza stuck in his throat. Panic! There was no time to get Dad from the football, and besides I knew from reading chapter 3 of the 7th Zach Danger book what to do if someone's choking. So I leapt out of my seat and ran round to Max, ready to whack him on the back as hard as I could, to dislodge the cheesy lump he was choking on. After all, it was my idea to order extra cheese, which meant this was totally my fault. Your fault! You should have seen me run, Danny. I was like a super spy on a top-secret mission, the way I leapt over the chairs and dived to save him. If it had been a movie, it definitely would have been one of those epic slow-motion shots they use in the trailers. I was already picturing the headlines in the newspapers. Hero boy saves baby brother. Frankie Brown knighted by the Queen of England for bravery. Movie made based on a true story of Frankie Brown. The boy, the baby and the pizza. But before I could save Max's life, the most awful smell in the world shot up my nose, and I realised that the little stinker wasn't choking at all. He was just going red because he was squeezing out a poo. If his red face hadn't given him away, the smell definitely would have. It was beyond yuck. It had a sharp sting to it when it first hit my nostrils, followed by a hint of whiffy egg and subtle cabbage undertones. Well, I definitely wasn't taking the responsibility for that. Dad, I shouted, Max needs his nappy changing. The football's gone to penalties, Frankie, was Dad's desperate reply. I could just imagine him on his knees in front of the TV, clutching his hair. I'll change him in a minute. Just hold your nose and eat your pizza. I went back to finish my slice, and to my surprise, Max had gone. His high chair was still there, but it was empty. Dad! I shouted, but he was yelling and cheering from the living room, and I guessed Wigglesbottom United had scored. I couldn't get any sense out of him for a while. That's when I heard an almighty crash. Max, I called, looking around the deserted kitchen. Where had the noise come from? There was another smash, and then I realised it was coming from behind the door, just beside the fridge. Mum's home science lab, the garage. I called for Dad again, and even went to get him, but he had his face pressed against the TV screen. Do you remember what I told you about the HSL? It's full of Mum's super top-secret dangerous science experiments, and we're not allowed in there. You know I am very respectful of rules, but I didn't have a choice. Max was in there, and he could have been touching anything, so I was about to do what any big brother whose dad is hopelessly distracted by football would do when faced with danger. Run straight towards it. Also, I had thought of a new catchphrase I wanted to try out. It was inspired by Zach Danger because I'd just finished book 12, Zach Danger and the Countdown to Destruction, that afternoon, and this was the perfect time to say it. It's danger time! I wasn't actually wearing a superhero cape, but I drew it on because it looks cool. I grabbed my pencil case from the kitchen table and snapped on my zip that turns into a torch, aiming the beam at the door. I was ready to face whatever deadly gadgets and inventions Mum had whipped up in there. The thing is, none of that actually happened. Before I could do that whole heroic leap thing, I spotted Max dashing across the kitchen. He can't have been in Mum's lab after all. He clambered up to the kitchen table, and as he stood up, I saw he was totally naked. Where have you put your disgusting poopy nappy? I asked. But just at that moment, through the window behind my little brother's nuddy butt, I noticed that the sky had changed. The clouds had got dark, really dark, and they were green, really dark green, and there were little flashes of lightning, green lightning. Max, I think you should get down from there. I don't think we should be near the windows, I said. Suddenly there was a huge deafening buzzing sound that seemed to make the whole house shake. Then, boom! The loudest thunderclap I have ever heard shook our house from top to bottom. A huge green flash lit up the room, and a gust of wind blew the kitchen windows wide open. Ouch! I jumped as my torch crackled with green light, and I rubbed my hand. It almost felt like I'd had a mini electric shock. But there was no time to think about that now, because filling the room was a disgusting, rotten, eggy smell, like Max's poop-filled nappy, but worse. "Max," I yelled, "get down!" But the little naked monster just giggled and leapt onto the kitchen worktop. I went to grab him, but I guess the fact that he had no clothes on made him more aerodynamic, because he was faster than a monkey on a motorbike, and I missed him. I chased after him, but out of the corner of my eye I saw something bad. Something very bad. Through the kitchen window, more flashes of freaky green lightning were smashing down from the spinach-coloured sky. I saw one huge green thunderbolt zap the roof of number 24, Eric Flipperson's house. Another flash of green shot down. This time it smashed into the telephone pole, electrifying the cables that ran to all the houses on our street, sending zaps of stinking green energy directly into each home. Molly McClear, Charlie Campbell, Katie Speck, Susie Prune, Jamelia Pointer, and even Ronnie Nutbog's houses were all zapped with this strange bolt of energy from the sky. And as the green flashes lit up the homes, I suddenly spotted their green-tinted faces peeping through their bedroom windows at this megastorm. Weird, right? Well, check this out. Next, the lightning turned into hailstones the size of footballs that smashed down onto the roofs of every parked car on the street. This was followed by moonbeam rainbows arching across the dark green sky. There were twisted twisters of what smelled suspiciously like butt gas. Yellow rain, not the kind you want to drink. Mucky mist, flatulent frost, honky haze. The northern lights even showed up before realising they were in the wrong place. A sandstorm blew in from somewhere, then blew off again. It rained cats and dogs, actual cats and actual dogs. Oh, and it snowed. Then the whole house started to shake again. If I didn't know better, I'd say this was an earthquake. But that's impossible, right? It was like Freaky was experiencing every weather phenomenon Mother Nature can create at the same time. If that wasn't strange enough, there were green flashes sparking underneath the door to Mum's lab. Suddenly the door burst open, and inside it was chaos. There was a great smouldering hole where the window had been blasted by a lightning bolt, and bubbling clouds were even forming in the lab itself. There was rain and snow and every kind of weather imaginable, all crashing around in our garage. Before I could shut the door, a tornado of fizzing, whirling, swirling energy escaped the lab and tore around the kitchen. I felt my feet lifting off the floor and saw Max's nappyless bum float past my face as he giggled. "This is not funny," I said. "It's like the storm has come inside our house. We need to take cover." I had to do something. If only we had a way to change the weather. Ding! Of course, Mum's invention, the Weather Ray. Or the Weather Ray 3000, as I was still calling it in my head. Perhaps I could power it up and zap this freaky storm into a nice calm evening and save Freaky from all this freakiness. Great idea! I was just about to make a run for the Weather Ray when I remembered the limiter, the device that would stop the machine from overheating and creating a crazy, out-of-control storm that would wipe out an entire town, maybe the world, or even the universe. It hadn't been installed yet. Bad idea. So instead of being a hero and saving the world, I decided to do the next best thing. Hide. I remembered that storm-chasing documentary you and me watched, when all those brave Americans with cool haircuts in awesome trucks drove into the path of twisters. Then I remembered what one of them said. The safest place in a storm is underground. Underground? Dad's man cave in our basement. It was every kid for himself, and I was about to run for the basement door when more headlines flashed into my mind. Awesome kid saves baby from stinky storm. Super brother rescues poopy brother. Frankie Brown named world's greatest person. I had to at least try to get Max out of there. I mean, how often do you get 2 chances to become a famous hero in one day? Plus, it meant I could say, "It's danger time" again, and I was already really starting to get used to that. You should have seen me go, Danny. I went into slow-mo mode again, just like Zach Danger himself, only better. Seriously. I think I even did a double backflip over the kitchen table, and a wicked knee slide under the ironing board. I scooped up my giggling, nappyless brother and a slice of pizza, and made a dash for the man cave. "Dad!" I yelled on the way. But Dad was hunched over crying, so I guessed that Wiggles Bottom United had lost, and he probably preferred the storm to blow him away with it. So I left him there. He was no use to us now. After stumbling into the basement, I closed the door, leaving the freaky storm behind. Everything felt quiet and still. We were safe. Max and I made ourselves comfy on Dad's dog-chewed armchair. R.I.P. Billy. Max fell asleep, and I found a box of Dad's Star Wars toys from when he was a kid. The ones that are all still in their boxes and aren't to be played with. Well, I figured it out. That it could be our last night alive. Even if we did survive the freaky storm, then Dad probably wouldn't. So I didn't have anything to lose by playing with his toys. All the excitement of the pizza, the explosions, the funky lightning and the Star Wars figures must have exhausted me more than I'd realised. I suppose I fell asleep, and the next thing I knew, I woke up in my own bed. That was this morning. I ran to the window and looked out at a perfectly ordinary sunrise over Freaky. Nothing had been destroyed by the green storm. In fact, it didn't even look like it had been raining. There was no damage to the cars, no damage to the rooftops of the houses. I had seen zapped with lightning just a few hours before. The swing outside Jamilia's house swung gently in the breeze, and Susie's parents at number 8 were both outside gardening and humming to themselves. Weird. I found Mum, Dad and Max in the kitchen. Mum was programming her breakfast order into the Pancake-O-Matic. Morning, sweetheart. Did you have fun last night? That was a good idea of Dad's to let you sleep in his man cave away from that storm. And aren't you lucky that Dad let you play with his Star Wars toys? Mum said, and Dad smiled at me nervously. Yeah, I replied, relieved that Dad didn't seem mad at me, and that he had survived the storm. That storm was bonkers. Mum sighed. Yes, it's a shame my weather ray hasn't got its limiter installed yet, or we could have zapped that straight into a nice clear sky in a jiffy. See, I knew that would have been a good idea. And now you'll have to rebuild your lab too, I said. Rebuild? Mum frowned. Yeah, the lightning blasted a hole in the wall and there was a tornado and... Mum dropped her pancake and darted to the lab door. She ripped it open and my jaw dropped. It was totally back to normal, spotless. Had I not seen the storm tear through the house with my own eyes, I would never have believed it. Dad chuckled. You must have dreamed it. As if. That's impossible, I gasped, staring at the pristine lab. Nothing's impossible in there, said Mum with a smile. But I saw it. It was a total wreck. Must have been all that extra cheese on your pizza before bed, Mum said, shooting Dad one of those looks before heading into her lab to start inventing stuff. She's still in there now, and Dad's doing the washing up. He keeps looking over his shoulder and mouthing something at me, like he's trying to tell me something, without Mum hearing, but I can't quite work it out. I told him I had a letter to write to you, and didn't have time to play his silly games, and took my toast to my bedroom, and that's where I am right now, writing this. I guess Dad must have cleaned up the mess while I was asleep. Sometimes it's best not to ask questions. Ignorance is bliss. That's what Dad keeps saying. It was one freaky night in Freaky, though. Right back soon. Frankie. And that is where we leave part 2 of The Danger Gang by Tom Fletcher. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story, and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.